talked about in metabolic positioning that is the goal, is to get glucose into cells, but too much. And just as a way of review, our body will convert that into fat. So I talked a lot about insulin and how insulin drives that process. When blood sugar gets too high, it comes back down. But do you remember what the antithesis of insulin is? The other hormone?
Glucagon?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
So interestingly, in our body, first of all, think in terms of homeostasis. So our body has to biochemically keep things in certain ranges, for life, just within that range that is the best for life. So, for example, oxygen. You need a certain oxygen level, but too much, and you can become very toxically acidic. And so you have a way of increasing carbon dioxide, and of course, vice versa. If you have too much carbon dioxide, then your diaphragm contracts and you breathe in more oxygen. You have chemical receptors in your bloodstream that monitor that. The same is happening for blood sugar. And so when blood sugar level gets too high, the brain says, okay, let's tell the pancreas to start releasing more insulin, and then we go into storage mode. Glucagon is the master hormone to retrieve energy, and it indiscriminately will retrieve glycogen or glucose out of those stored carb sources in our body, or fat from our adipose tissue. And as you said, in even harsh fasting states, muscle tissue. So you can even turn amino acids into glucose, the term gluconeogenesis, creating new glucose. And so all of that is in section, I believe, 4.2, and it really describes what your body is doing to get to that usable form of carbohydrate, which is glucose.
Now, this is trying to get to like homeostasis in a way where if your blood sugar is high, your insulin is created to bring your blood sugar down, correct? So diabetics, if they don't get their blood sugar under control, their blood sugar is going to be insanely high. And I don't know if you know or see this, but with insulin-dependent diabetics, you ever see people overdosing, and because they don't know how much carbs they're eating, so they kind of overdose, where they end up storing more body fat because they're, like you said, it becomes more anabolic and you're storing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting how that can be such a powerful thing in terms of weight gain or weight loss.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Because diabetes, we talked a lot about gastrointestinal disorders that you need to be aware of. You're going to have type 2 diabetics and type 1 diabetics come to you, and most nutrition consultants freak out. They say, whoa, I don't know if I can do this. Like, what if I hurt this person?
Keto.
Well,
straight keto, everybody. Just kidding.
Right. Just kill all of your diabetic clients. That will take care of that. But it is very important to understand that even a type 1 diabetic that has to take insulin, they need to monitor this, and it is never our place to say your diet has these requisite needs and you must stick to your diet. I always tell diabetics, type 1, type 2, your disease process takes precedent. So you need to monitor that, and even if I have suggested that you eat 175 grams of carbs a day, if your blood sugar is low and you need more because you've been up or you've been training or something, you need more. Don't stick to any plan that you and I have agreed on. You have to monitor that and take care of yourself. It is more sophisticated these days in that a lot of people have pumps that are reading their blood sugar level and dispensing the right amount they need. But some people still have to take some long-acting and short-acting insulin or medication, even things like metformin, glucophage, things like that. And so you need to let them know that because you're going to be eating healthier and you're going to be controlling your intake with a lot of consistency, your need is going to come down. And so you need to talk to your doctor about this, and that's going to be something that you're monitoring. And I have had type 1 diabetics reduce their insulin usage by 500%.
It's crazy how much they reduce. Yeah. That's what I was saying. They kind of not abuse, but they do too much because they don't really know. Mm-hmm. They just kind of guess, and once they formulate it and do it properly, they dramatically reduce.
I took my dad to Europe for 10 days before he died 5 years ago. And I remember on the very first day, just type 2 diabetic, have become profound referral sources. And sometimes that can mean anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000 of with sugar.
Yep.
And so it can be a little bit of a mixed message.
I think it's they're really obsessing about sugar, and specifically where I try and teach people, like, excessive amounts of sugar is bad, but don't look at sugar as being bad, because then you attach it to carbs as being bad. And that's kind of what we're talking about, low carb diets. And people think, oh, it's the sugar that's causing me to gain weight. Well, no, it's the excessive amount of carbs that you're eating that's related to the sugar. So I think I found that if people really think about just sugar only and they really obsess about it, they attach it to carbs as being bad. And so I try and wipe that out of their brain initially.
And there are even points in time where some sugar is helpful. Let's say, for example, I just hiked the Grand Canyon a year and a half ago, and I've got a 40-pound pack on my back, and I'm doing 10 miles a day, sometimes up, down elevation. I'm not going to stop and eat a chicken breast sandwich every 3 hours or something. I've got my Camelback with powdered Gatorade because I need that sugar. Even some general population clients sometimes would do better. Let's say you've got a factory job and you only get a 15-minute break, in the afternoon. Well, maybe they just want to kind of sip on a Gatorade for those 6 hours in between to keep blood sugar more stable instead of having a whole food meal. Maybe that's too much bulk for their GI system because their job, keeps them on the run. There are many reasons why some simple carbs are favorable in some situations.
What about pre and post workout?
Yeah, for people who train hard, it depends on the context. So if I'm training in the afternoon and let's say I had lunch an hour and a half earlier, I may be fine with what's already in my GI system and my blood sugar level stable. But if it's been 3 or so hours and I'm like, well, I'm kind of hungry, I'm probably going to crash if I don't eat something, well, I don't want this huge gut load. So something simple can be helpful. And by simple, sometimes that's just a volume amount.
Okay.
Just last week, because it's winter in Indiana, and so you start eating more things like soup and all that, I'm all of a sudden like craving oatmeal, like I just something hot and something dense. So my pre-workout was just maybe a third of a cup of oatmeal with a half a scoop of protein powder, and so that's a pretty complex starch, but it was fine. Whereas the week before, it might have been eating one Reese's peanut butter cup or something like that. There you go.
That's down my alley. But yeah, with pre and post workout, it's really depending on timing of when you're eating prior to or how long ago you ate. You don't want to go in feeling bloated and miserable and just stuffed. It's just not. I'd rather sleep if I'm really stuffed with food than work out. Get tired.
And I've heard people, to your point about being afraid of sugar. If they start looking at a numerical value like that, all of a sudden they're like, oh, that banana, that has too much sugar.
Yes.
Or, this granola bar has 3 grams of sugar. What's up with that? I didn't think that should have any sugar, so they're not eating that. Mm-hmm. And it's just nonsensical to start getting into that level instead of looking at the entire macro foundation of your diet.
The big picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Big picture.
It's always truly quantity over quality. If I had 20 grams of carbs and sugar, 20 grams from a starch, because that's below the threshold of what my body probably would be thrown into a state of insulin reaction with, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's the quantity first, quality second. Quality is important. Quantity is more important.
Now, does blood sugar change obviously it spikes, depending on the type of source you're having. Does it change your blood sugar levels when you have it mixed with protein?
Definitely, because again, that slows down digestion. So that pyloric sphincter between your stomach and small intestine will stay closed longer, and because the protein has to be digested longer, it's going to lower the glycemic index value of those carbs.
So then the glycemic index value is kind of irrelevant in that situation, where I guess if you have it just by itself, it's more, you can tell like what that matters more.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of thrown out the window. People really focus on the glycemic index a lot. Just in general, they don't realize that like protein with it actually changes it completely.
Yeah. And interestingly, things like, if you just look at glycemic index value, which was very in vogue 20 or 30 years ago, you miss things like your own nuanced reaction to certain foods. So last week, my wife and daughter went to lunch to this new novel little cafe, and they brought me back this big brownie. And I thought, okay, this thing is amazing, but I really don't need it right now. I'm going to save it for tomorrow. And when I ate that, even though that's high sugar, right? This thing probably had 75 grams of carbs,
Sounds like it.
primarily sugar. But because there's also some fat, like I consumed that, and the calorie value, the quantity, I wasn't hungry for another 3 or 4 hours. So did that really have a negative effect on my weight or health? Probably not.
Yeah.
If I ate 7 of those a day,
Yeah, that would be a factor.
now we're into quantity again, and that's a factor. But I replaced one of my snacks with that, and then I ended up delaying my next meal by a couple hours, so it had zero impact on my overall calories for the day.
And that's exactly what you've been saying last week too, with the structured flexibility. And so that plays a huge role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these are things that you guys, to teach your clients to avoid those rigid rules is important. We still want to respect